I just thought about this. This would actually be the last movie that you would want to see with that guy. You know, that guy, that one that once he found out that the killer can move from body to body just by touching something, you'd never stop hearing what that guy thinks should be touched next or questions what can be touched. Well, yo, what if it touched an old lady? Oh, what if he touched a fire hydrant? That'd be crazy, right? You know what? I just touch a hot chick and then I just touch myself, if you know what I mean. Don't watch this movie with that guy. Welcome to Half-Ass Movie Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Half-Ass Movie Podcast, a show where we put together a half-ass theme as an excuse to watch movies. My name is Adam Portress, and joining me today, he too hates the Rolling Stones but loves the Monkees, Sweet Sean Zakovacs from the internet.
You know what you would look like with this sandwich up your ass?
Oh,
like a fat, stupid fuck with a sandwich up his ass.
And he's ready to put that job where the sandwich goes, Bruce Leslie.
My favorite sandwich is a chili dog, or as I call it, a wet glizzy.
Well, we hope you're staying dry out there, ladies and gentlemen, because back here on HMP, we are trucking along this month with our new series, Thankful, the action films of Denzel Washington, and we're jumping a few weeks forward from last week's Virtuosity, and we are on to 1998's Fallen. This was a Sean pick. Sean, what brought us about?
Okay, so I have not made it quiet how much I love Denzel Washington. I think he's one of our finest actors.
Hold on, let me write this down. Denzel Washington.
I think that he has the weirdest energy of a major movie star, meaning he can play almost any character and it's going to work. Like whether he's a dirty cop or whether he's a lawyer who don't like the gays, or he could be a Civil War soldier, or he can be a cop who's trying to stop the devil. Like it just works because he's Denzel Washington, damn it. And he's great in this movie. As I said to you guys before, during the Patreon stuff, I had a moment at the middle of this week where I realized, you know, as much as I love Fallen and I love that movie, I haven't seen it in forever. So I was like, oh no, this movie might be bad. This might be one of those 90s movies where you're like, oh, this is so dark and gritty. And then when you watch it, you're like, this movie sucks so bad. Fortunately, that is not the case this week. Because watching it yesterday, I was like, oh, thank God. Thank God.
It's like, this is either going to be amazing or it's just going to be absolutely terrible and the most cliched 90s thing, and like everybody's wearing like just the worst outfits and stuff. Thankfully, this movie's not that for the most part.
The only thing about this movie that is 90s goofy is what I like to call Tool vision, where anytime you're looking
we'll be
through
talking
the
about
killer's
that.
eyes, it looks like a Tool video.
Yeah, I call that the Sony stretch.
But
that was on a lot of camcorders back in the day.
This movie, other than that, though, this movie, I was so pleasantly relieved watching this movie yesterday. Oh, thank goodness! And Denzel just looking handsome and young, vibrant.
So it is wild watching these movies because it's like, you know, we've kind of been, you know, for lack of a nicer word, stuck with Denzel for quite some time here. So we've kind of all aged along with him. So we see Denzel at his age now. It all makes sense. But man, you forget that when you go back 30 years or, you know, 25 years plus at this point, and you're like, oh man, he was like, we have come a long way, haven't we? Because he is looking like a young buck in this movie.
Yeah, he does.
And I hate, well, the other 90s thing is his big ass jacket. That is whew.
Man, he can't, when he's on that basketball court, he's got that super oversized polo shirt and the jeans that look like they fit somebody who's like King Kong Bundy size.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, right. I totally forgot that was the fashion at the time.
We was just
and
dressing
it just
awful.
looked so dopey.
Thank God he wasn't wearing a pair of Jinkos or something.
That's the upside.
Plenty of space to move around. But before we get into everything here, let's remind everybody that we have a little page, patreon.com/HMP. Those awesome people get pre-show, post-show, dinger zone, and help this show keep going. And then at the same time, too, we don't end up being like half the other podcasts that I'm sure you listen to, where there's 45 minutes worth of ads for shit that you don't want to buy. We don't want you to listen to those ads either. We actually want you to get more of the, what you came here for, which is fun and stupid-ass banter from the three of us dum-dums. If you head over to patreon.com/HMP, join up at any level, whatever's commensurate with the value that you get from this program, send that back to us. We'd really appreciate it, and keep this show flowing, man. I don't have a job right now, so I really need it. Patreon.com/HMP. And if you can't do that, share the show with somebody. Let them know that this thing's out there. Follow us on YouTube, or shoot us an email there, halfassmoviepod@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Let's get into it, fellas. Here's the IMDb plot line for Fallen. As we all know, IMDb 100% correct in everything they say and or do. Homicide detective John Hobbs witnesses the execution of serial killer Edgar Reese. Soon after the execution, the killings start again, and they are very similar to Reese's style. That's, it is true, but it's a little clunkily written there, IMDb, just so you know.
It's really hard to describe, though. Without giving it all away.
That's true. You'd kind of have to give away everything. This was written by Nicholas Kazan, best known for this movie, as well as Enough. You remember that movie with J-Lo where she's trying to escape an abuser? He also wrote Bicentennial Man. You remember the movie where Robin Williams looks like Urkelbot? Yep. He wrote that one, too.
Classic.
He also wrote one of the best kids' film of the last 30 years, Matilda. That's a fantastic one.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that's his best work, in my opinion.
Agreed.
But he's probably actually best known for having a dad who was one of the most celebrated directors of all time. Sure, he just worked up through the mailroom. I'm positive of that. Directed by Gregory Hoblit, who looks a little bit like Henry Winkler, believe it or not. He did a lot of TV, including NYPD Blue. He directed Primal Fear just before this movie, so not too bad if you can get Edward Norton an Oscar nomination there. And just after this movie, he directed Frequency, Hearts War, and Fracture. And just last year, he directed Through His Lens, a documentary about Oscar-winning cinematographer Philippe Rousselot. That's a last name. It's hard to say. Rousselot? Sure. That's not too shabby, though, if you think about it, this guy's career. But the weirdest and oddest credit of this entire movie goes to costume designer, Oscar winner Colleen Atwood.
Really?
Yeah. When her name came up in the credits, I was like, say huh now? This don't make no sense to me. Starring Denzel Washington, John Goodman, James Gandolfini, Donald Sutherland, who, by the way, this is that crossover point where him and Kiefer look about damn near the same. And Beth Davids and Elias Koteas. Yeah, man, 1998. I am like a junior in high school and everything. And I remember seeing this trailer nonstop. They leaned into the Stones, Time Is On My Side. Yeah. So good. Sold the movie
and they
like
also
crazy
have
to
all
me.
of those great little moments with characters talking to Denzel's character.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that in the trailer a lot, especially the cute girl at the gun scene.
I don't recall seeing trailers for this. Like, I saw this on VHS because somebody said this is cool, you should watch it. And it came out of the blue when I watched it, but it was relatively new, like it was fresh on VHS, but it totally missed me somehow.
Well, this is during our busy time, this movie, because I already have a kid at this point, and I'm deep into my comedy career at that point, and I'm guessing that you were probably
smack dab in the middle of medical school in '98. Yeah, like right at the midpoint.
Yeah, you don't have time to watch trailers and stuff.
You know what? I'm surprised I had time to watch the VHS.
I remember the trailers playing in Blockbuster Video. I'm specific, man. I remember hearing this all the time, and you'll be surprised to know this actually is not my first time reviewing this film. The first time I reviewed this film was when I was in high school. For our TV. So my high school, tiny little town in South Carolina here and everything, once right around the time I was in 11th grade and everything, they started the broadcast journalism, which started in like the old band room. They had nothing in there but like tables and chairs and hopes and dreams and stuff. But like literally fast forward to like a year later, they've done a kind of a public access deal with the local cable company and everything. So all of the educational channel stuff was put together by high school students. And so I did a review show with my buddy Chris, and Fallen was one of the movies that we ended up reviewing when this thing first started. With two Denzel Washington movies, no less, because we did The Bone Collector also. So, you know.
Sweet Shanzi, I'd love to get my hands on some of that footage.
You know, I have a confession to make. We also had our local high school news program. I don't think that there was a public access component, but we did have like you'd have the morning, you know, like
your announcements and stuff.
What announcements? Thank you. I couldn't think of the word. And then after that, there would be a video component that would go with it.
Nice.
And I knew enough to know that I was not someone that you wanted to see on screen during that time. Like I knew, like if I'm on screen, I'm going to get killed. So I'll let other kids do that, but I will produce and write this thing. And I did. And I was a monster. I was the worst. I was the worst. I would give critiques of the kids who are just like, oh, you just want me to read this? Okay. And they didn't care. And I cared so deeply for no reason. like I was like producing 60 minutes. It was like the worst. I was the worst.
I wrote the gossip column in my elementary school newspaper.
Sharon's got boogers.
It was more like this person likes that person. And it really, really burned a lot of bridges for me at an early age.
Cooties outbreak.
My problem was my co-host of the show that I put together that was called The Real Review, REEL. Yeah, that's right.
Whoa.
Yeah, wild stuff. He was my friend, but he was also a little bit of a drug addict.
That wouldn't come till later.
And he'd kind of miss school and stuff a whole bunch, and so I was left doing a lot of work. And it's difficult to have a show with two people when the other person just doesn't show up to school 3/4 of the time. So we didn't produce a whole lot of programs, unfortunately. My heart was behind it, and I was just like, this is the only other kid that knows movies well enough for this, but he didn't have the dedication. Now I am happy to report he has gotten his life very much together. He is, a responsible adult working in the world, wife and kid and all that kind of good stuff. So, and if any of them, I thought for sure he was going to be the one that was going down hell's path, but he survived. So don't worry.
Oh man, that's a good name for an autobiography. Down hell's path.
That's not too shabby.
It really is. I need to write that down.
So this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Movie, let's go ahead and get into to talking about this a little bit. We all remember the conceit, and that's the song. But what I didn't remember until this time around is they understand they have to introduce the conceit and they have to introduce the rules, but they lean so hard into that they actually introduce a plot hole before the movie even gets started. Because he touches the prison guard, then the prison guard leaves the room, and then as he's dying, he's singing the song. But then later, whoever he touches immediately starts singing the song. So that's like, oh man, it got me trapped in a spot right there where the whole movie, I'm like, but wait, are they not going to explain? Wait. That makes it enjoyable for me in a strange way.
Sir, if I may.
Yes, sir.
He does touch that guard. However, he waits until they kill him so that his essence leaves that body, the body of the guy who was just gassed. And he gets into the prison security guy after that.
And I also thought, like in the age of vaping, that gas chamber suddenly does not look intimidating.
No, it looks. I'm like, that's not even. When I did my little funny joke with my fogger, it got worse than that.
Yeah. I feel like we should take like that clip and make it look like a public warning against the dangers of vaping. Look what happened to this guy when he vaped.
The problem that I have with the conceit of this movie is that you shouldn't be able to transfer through touch of fabric.
Yeah.
Yes.
It should be skin on skin.
Yeah, I agree with that one too. But that one
it was bugging the hell out of me.
Or you could just touch anywhere. That's all.
No,
that's also the thing is that you can not just only, but it's touch anywhere, and you're anything like literally like your shoulder to shoulder, like between like fabrics. Even it's like it's.
And I started
crazy.
wondering if it was Shocker the way he would like move through crowds like an electric current.
There's a little bit of that, but at least. I do like how we can kind of, skirt the rules whenever we kind of feel like it a little bit in this movie, and I don't mind it. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, it goes into the air, but it can only go like 3 miles. I'm like, how the hell do you know that shit?
Well, it's the cubits from the Bible, right? That's kind of how they like, and it like hand wavy, and this is how this works, kind of a thing. I do have to say they have a mountain to climb because audiences aren't super sophisticated in 98 yet. So they have to explain the body hopping in a way that even the dumbest audience member is going to be able to understand it, but they don't want to over explain. And so it's a really clever way that they get that done. And I can remember being one of the dumbest people watching this movie in 98 when it came out and being like, oh, I get it. And I got it in the police station. And so I was like, oh, I wonder how many people got that. And I think that it might have just been me.
I want to confess I'm holding this movie to a higher standard too, because Denzel's in the lead. I mean, I have no problem with plot holes. I have no problem with this absurdity as long as I'm having fun. But suddenly I'm watching this like it's competing with Silence of the Lambs and not competing with an Emilio Estevez direct-to-video joint, which is really kind of where this market was probably geared towards a little closer.
I think you're right. I think it's more of like the blockbuster rental market is probably where their sweet spot was, and they knew it.
Yeah, I'd say so.
But Denzel's still a big deal in 98. I mean, he's post-Oscar Denzel at this point.
Yeah.
So it's just strange for me to see a lot of money poured into something and then to think like, well, this shows signs of being written by a committee, which I guess that's probably why it looks that way.
Well,
that's probably what happened.
Here's the thing, though, is like we're in 98, the late 90s here. We are kind of letting people just do whatever. There's a little bit more kind of freeness in a way, because I think like your Miramax and stuff coming around is allowing other folks to kind of step out and take weirder and odder chances and stuff than we were. And of course your Screams or your post Scream here and everything, so horror movies are kind of coming back, and there's a little horror-ish element to this thing and everything. So they play off that kind of stuff as much as they can, but thankfully we don't fall into any of the, many of the late 90s and early 2000s trappings of these movies with like really shitty soundtracks and stuff like that. Thank God this movie doesn't have that.
It's kind of surprising that you're not hearing like
a Korn song or something.
Yeah.
And I would say a big plus side is just the overall tone. I'm enjoying the performances. It's shot so well. The sound is good. And as long as I'm enjoying the moment, I don't get bogged down by the big picture plot. So that's kind of what makes it enjoyable for me after I kind of introduced, in my brain, the little plot hole. Then it was easy to just kind of relax, though, and enjoy the ambiance. Like it really does have a good feel to it. And, you can tell this is maybe peak. Yeah, there's some X-Files influence here, right?
Oh, yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's a time when people were really into tone more than laying things out and being obvious. So it's kind of a nice mix of those two.
Yeah, but Sean makes the great point, though, is that like while they may end up kind of hitting you with the quote-unquote subliminal thing a couple of times just so you can figure it out without having to scream it at you, They may hit you with it a couple times, but at least they're not, going, I can't believe that the way that we get from it is one touching the other person in some bullshit. We don't need any of that. We just get through. We have to smash it through because, again, like you said, 90 audiences ain't quite as hip to all of this as we kind of, have become in the last 25 years. But now it's like, okay, now we can have these people figure it out without slapping them in the face with it, like with a raw fish or something.
And I did enjoy the mystery component, the riddle, like figuring out why is the name missing, who did it belong to. I enjoyed that and the little Scooby-Doo mystery to be solved. Once that got solved, I probably enjoyed it a little bit less because I think that hits about the midpoint. But I did like that. I think that the first half of this movie is a lot of fun.
Well, let's talk about this real fast, just because he's talking about the first half of the film here and everything. And I think it's probably the undersung element of this movie, and that's Elias Koteas's performance as the prisoner there in your first, opening scrawl and everything. Without his awesome performance right there, the rest, I don't want to say the rest of the movie doesn't work, but like it's not as memorable, it's not as interesting. He really lays down in such a short amount of time. We set the table for this. We get his characteristics, we get the mannerisms, and it feels like also that the characters the character actors and stuff that we got to portray, the entity as it's going along and everything, it feels like they at least talked to him, and got something out of that, or at least were directed in a way that made them kind of look and feel like what, the kind of demon entity, whatever you'd like to call it, is. It's very, very smart. But I think without his performance, this movie suffers a good hefty chunk.
And I think we're going to get close to when we got to talk about big spoilers. Do we want to kind of let folks know that we do that?
Yeah, just in case if you hadn't seen
I know
this
we
one.
used to always do that at the top of the show, and now it's kind of people have chilled out about it, and we are sort of assume they're cool with it at this point. But I do want to mention it because having not remembered the details of this, I didn't realize the ending, so that hit me fresh again. So it really picked me up right at the end.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Getting a little endorphin rush at the end and having a fun first half goes a long way with me, but I am going to go ahead and just say right now that I feel this movie is too long for a pulpy story.
I think it is long.
Yeah.
It is too long. Adam and I are always in lockstep with this. The second that I thought like, oh, this movie's a little too long, I was like, Adam definitely thinks this is too long.
Mm-hmm. This movie could easily lose 20 minutes and would be a better movie for it.
Yes,
and there is stuff to cut. We languish in some bullshit for a while here that we don't need to. You've gotten the point across. Let's get trucking.
I mean, pretty much once he solves the mystery, knows what the entity is, let's go straight to the end game. But they dwell on some other stuff in the middle that I don't know if somebody demanded it be over 2 hours. Like, I don't know what the deal is. They're like, we paid this much money, we want 130 minutes out of you. I don't know what the deal is.
I think there may be, and this is all speculation, I'm talking out my butt here, but given everybody that's involved with this, from your Denzel to your director here, who's just off of a movie that he's gotten Oscar nominations and stuff for. John Goodman still, 98, he's hyping up, he's still big in television and stuff and still doing plenty of movies and whatnot. So like getting him is a big deal in there. Like, Gandolfini hasn't hit his shot yet here and anything, but he like, if you look at his career, he's been kind of jumping up little bit by little bit. This is a bigger role for him right now. So we are definitely leading into this time, that kind of, true romance time and stuff like that. So Gandolfini's star is rising and stuff like that. Donald Sutherland's still at a high point in his career at this point, so he's not really slumming yet. So you got a lot of great people, and again, like I said, costume Oscar winner Colin Atwood is doing the costumes on this. I figure all of the stars just kind of aligned in the right place, and again, late 90s, they're probably spending a little bit more money than they should be, just because people are going to the movies. To be quite honest,
I got a couple of things.
Let's hear.
So the first thing is that I want to bring up is what I think is the secret sauce of this movie, which is that it is messy. Like when you're in the police bullpen and people are talking to each other, they're talking over each other, and they're also they clearly have their lines in the script, but also there's people shooting off after that, like just adding one or two things to what the script is, because you're getting honest reactions out of people when somebody makes a joke. Like the back and forth between Denzel and Goodman and Gandolfini when they're in the bullpen, those scenes are clearly, yes, those are scripted, but there's also like one-off stuff that is happening in there. And it makes it more lived in. This movie feels so lived in. It feels like they've been there forever. It doesn't feel like a cop show from like the 90s WB, where it's like, oh, did you guys just move into this police station? There's no feel of that there. I think it's with the exception of Killer Vision, the Tool video that is throughout this movie because it is the 90s. I think that it is so well shot. There are so many scenes that are so well represented. Like when he's chasing after the guy, the killer in the subway, those first scenes, just seeing how they're composing those shots is amazing. Like there's so many moments where it's like a snapshot and you're like, wow, that is a beautiful shot. Like that is an amazing shot. But to me, the coolest thing about this movie is just how messy it all feels. Like when people are speaking to each other. I mean, the plot itself, that part shouldn't be messy. The talking should be messy because there's so many damn people in this movie, and it is, and it's great.
Yeah. When you look back at his history of stuff with like your Hill Street Blues and L.A. Law and your NYPD Blue, it totally makes sense. Like all that kind of actually adds up, and you're like, yeah, okay, perfect. But that's definitely the tone that ends up here because it could be awful if you're not careful.
Yeah, true. And I also think I was surprised. The thing that surprised me most was not seeing Gandolfini in this movie, but seeing Tony Soprano's sister also in the police bullpen in this movie. It shocked me. I was like, "Holy shit, that's where they met."
That probably is.
You know what threw me off? Robert Joy. I was like, he's just a character actor that like when you see him in the background, you're just like, nope, I know this man. This guy's not just getting a hot dog right now. He's about to have a bigger role.
In my memory, Donald Sutherland always looks like he does in the Hunger Games at this point. And I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, but he was on screen for quite some time before I realized who he was.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I just got like the Hunger Games thing in my head so much I forgot he was ever young.
This is the age I kind of see him at all the time, actually, if I'm to picture him in my brain.
Is this contemporaneous with Space Cowboys?
You're right around.
Okay, because I feel like he looked older in Space Cowboys than he does here, but they were playing up the fact that they were elder.
No, he does. He doesn't look as old in this film for sure.
You know what? That's another one of those movies I'm kind of like worried to watch
for old folks.
I'm kind of like apprehensive about watching because I really liked Space Cowboys when it came out, but now I bet it's just the worst movie ever now if I watched it.
Oh man, they should do a reboot all with former child actors.
Land of Robert Joy. I had to look it up because I didn't know him by name alone. Yeah, he's the sandwich guy.
Yeah, it's just like when you see him, I was like, for half a second when he was on screen before that, I'm like, nope, I know who that. I couldn't take his name off the top of my head at the time, but I'm like, that's a character actor I know from a bajillion things. There ain't no way that guy ain't getting infected. 3, 2, 1, touch.
Well, I mean, that's another thing with this movie too, right? Is that it is lousy with character actors, like demon jumping from body to body. It's just character actor after character actor after character actor. It's pretty great.
And that's
all
why
good. I thought one of them was Tony Hawk briefly, as I said, I think off the air.
They're all so good. And that's like, and especially the kids could be awful and cringy and they're not. They're actually pretty good. They're not like Dakota Fanning good at this point, but you know, they all right.
Right.
Now, given that I was just kind of enjoying the overall feel of the movie, I didn't pay that close of attention to some of the details. And I know that we've got James Gandolfini and John Goodman around a lot. Does Denzel Washington have a partner?
Yeah, John Goodman.
Okay, because I wasn't quite sure if he was his partner or just a friend who was around sometimes.
It's one of those things where they're showing you, not telling you. If you see the desks going face to face with each other, that generally means they're partners.
All right. I don't know enough about the inside to understand that, but I suspected they were partners, but I wasn't sure. But I thought the one trope, not the one, but a trope that they're missing out here is that the guy who got executed should have killed his partner. And that kind of made it more personal.
I'm glad that didn't happen.
No,
that would have been the Mel
that.
Gibson version though, right? Or you know what I mean? That would have been a lot of versions of this would have been that his partner got killed by the guy.
Agreed.
He would have been played by Mitch Pileggi.
Maybe. I would like to. I like how playful our killer is here, transferring from body to body. This is a guy who likes to shake it around in your face a bit.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's so much fun that he just goes, like he goes. I mean, do all demons just kind of go, well, I'm gonna be a bit of a naughty boy today and just kind of have a bunch of fun, go around and like. But it's so cool, and we like, especially with the Gandolfini stuff with him in there, touching him, putting that in, and just like a little spelly outy for a '90s audience because you kind of have to be, but
you have to, man. Like I said earlier. I think that your audience, while it's getting sophisticated, you need to kind of hold their hand to get this is before everybody knows what a prequel is. Like this is before multiverses. Yeah. This is before all of that. Like you have to kind of like handhold. It's the trick that the Matrix has to pull off correctly, right? Or like, listen, we know that this is a big explanation, and we need to explain it, but we can't just say like, you mean there's a demon who hops from body to body?
Yeah,
like you just can't do that in this movie. It's too smart a movie for that. I wouldn't say it's a smart movie, but it's certainly not a dumb one.
Exactly.
Either.
It's not a dumb movie, but it's not a smart movie. That's correct.
Now, here's what I want to say, though, about not being a dumb movie, not being a smart movie. It had one scene that, to me, it was the standout scene, and it's a small moment, my favorite moment from the film, and it feels way too smart for this movie. But when Denzel's talking to James Gandolfini, because I don't bother with character names sometimes, well, they're talking about Cream, which is, taking bribes and, right, looking the other way on some things. And how does Denzel feel about it? And he's like, even a crooked cop is still a cop, and you're still out there doing more good than most people. And I thought that kind of sums up the sort of coping mechanism I have with so much of life. It's the only way I can keep going is by not expecting anything to be perfect. And I just felt like that moment was entirely too big and too profound, that small moment in this movie. And I thought, like, wow, I can't believe that was written by the same people that wrote some of the other stuff.
Bruce is going to be like, I didn't murder anybody, did I? Guess it's fine then. Shut up. Guess that's how it works. Let's see. There's a couple other things. Like I said, you're right, Sean. My favorite part is just the Sony Vision camera. Again, why we thought this was the coolest thing ever. But the best.
Adam, I'm going to tell you straight up. I remember watching this movie, and that was like, there's like not even a thing where I was like, oh wow, that's what they're going to use for killer vision.
Yeah,
like at the time, because it was just everywhere all the time. Like even like anti-drug campaigns had that kind of camera work done. Like it was just literally everywhere. And so when it shows up now in a thing 35 years later or 25 years later, it's like, oof.
Speaking of that many years later, isn't it odd to see characters smoke on screen?
I love it.
You just don't.
I lost the signal for just a second there, but I did want to kind of build on like what Sean was saying there before we were talking about the smoking. But the smoking is kind of a weird flashback because that makes it like an automatic R now, doesn't it?
Yeah,
just about. It's a strange one, but here's the best part though, is that like. It's not for nothing. The smoking's in there, and it ultimately ends up being a reason, which I forgot because obviously I knew how things ended because I'd seen the movie previously and stuff. But it's one of those like the final touches. You're not quite sure exactly. It's like, well, how do we finally get this sort of thing? And so the smoking actually makes sense and is nice. And it was one moment where I thought, oh, this movie's a little bit more clever than I had thought it was.
Did you guys have many opinions about the character that's the adult daughter of the name that was missing, the original cursed guy or whatever? Because I felt like she was a bit of a wet blanket thrown in the middle of a pretty fun film.
Oh, I love her, but
good.
I understand where you're going with that. I think that but my love for Matilda is really kind of shaping my because I love that movie so much.
And I feel like she's the one who brought the most what I would call X-Files acting into it, almost like she's trying to be just a little Scully. Was that the red-haired lady?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, listen, it was quite popular at the time, so many people were kind of duping and doing their best to ride those coattails. I mean, hell, they even did it themselves, where they're just like, you know what people want? A lone gunman spinoff. Like, we had some crazy thoughts back in the 90s, you know?
Yeah, but it wasn't at all bad time. You know, you can have fun watching this. Can we talk now about the ending, how we felt about it, the pluses, the minuses, anything like that? Or is there more
let's real quick, John Goodman, just because he's a little understated in the performance and everything. At least he kind of has something to do a little bit more towards the end, thank God, because for a while there I was just like, I felt like I remembered Goodman having a little bit more something to chew, and we finally do get it in that kind of third act and everything. But there's something about him. I love him in kind of weird cop roles and stuff, because he seems like there's a duality of John Goodman in that he's this big giant man who looks like he could very much hurt you, but there's also a soft and gentle guy inside there that you can kind of see, and like he rides that line so well. And I think it's an understated performance, but I think he's actually really good in this movie.
I begged and begged and begged to see King Ralph, and I did not regret begging. I loved King Ralph back when it was a fresh thing.
I think that Goodman in this movie, Goodman kind of feels like he's like the Voltron of actors to me, because when we were kids and when Bruce and I were kids and we would watch Voltron, like the plot of Voltron is always the same. It's lions go to protect the planet. A roe beast comes in, just kicks the living crap out of those lions, and then at the end of each episode they form Voltron and then destroy roe beast. Now, why don't they just form Voltron in the first place and beat the roe beast? Because they're trying to put on a show for
we got 17 minutes to fill, damn it.
Exactly. And so I think that Goodman does that whenever he knows he has something later, but he kind of understates the performance because he's going to blow up later. Like,
oh yeah.
Think of like just the river of ham that he's acting in something like "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" And then juxtapose that with something small like this, where like he knows he's got this big meaty dinner coming at the end of the movie. So he's just gonna order the side salad for now. And it happens. And like, you can kind of see it coming. I mean, like, oh, well, he's definitely going to be.
You don't hire John Goodman to, more or less, not always, but for the most part, you're not hiring him just to be a kind of demure type character. That doesn't really happen a lot with him. Now, he can play that, and as we see in this movie, he can have that range to go from that. But I think you're absolutely correct. Is those early ones, he's going, listen, we're going to keep playing this at a 3 because we're going up to a 10. So we don't want anybody, and again, you don't want to be broadcasting your signal, to the audience a little bit too early. I'm just John Goodman. I'm a good cop. I'm a little bit more laid back and stuff. And I could never be the guy.
Hey, if you stay too close to the ceiling, there's no room to jump up and down. One of the things that I'd forgotten about it is how fast it can go through people and how quickly the game is, so to speak. How he's walking down the streets and it's just touch, touch, touch. And again, there's something malevolent and scary about a being that would kind of toy with this guy like this.
Man,
it's kind of, it makes it even more scary that he's just showing it off in front of him and just going like, I'm not even hiding it from you. I'm going to sing the song in front of you. And he there's a good while where he's, for lack of a better word, he's just haunting him. He's not even getting into the revenge yet. He just kind of wants to haunt Denzel just a bit to see what happens. See if we can kind of get him on his toes a little bit. And he does. But then when he finally tells him who he is and shows his cards and everything, he never stops showing the cards, which again is kind of fun. But also then he's out looking at all the other people and stuff, and it makes everybody, a possible assailant, if you will. So it very, very well handled.
Dude's a demon, and he keeps just prank calling Denzel Washington.
I love that, man. Something about that just seems right. Had to be there, kids. You had to live through the 90s, but it seems right.
I'm a demon, but I'm petty.
I
You
think
ever Star 69 the devil?
It's so much fun in games when Beth David's character is trying to run away from him in that on that busy sidewalk, and it just he tries to catch up with her by like people just bam 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 like touching the next person in front of them. Man, the fun in games in that, and her like running for her life, so unbelievably cool.
And like everybody that kind of like that knowing look then that every person kind of ends up giving him and stuff, and like, you know, oh, so good. Just very like, because it puts you in that role, because there's so many things that like they don't quite express it in this way all the time, but like they almost put you in kind of that first person perspective of you looking right at it and just like, oh God. Yeah, because if anyone came at you that way in real life, you would be wildly scared of that, because that's not how people work. They don't just stare you right in the eyes as they're walking at you.
It's true.
It's so frightening.
Bruce, would you believe me if I told you that the woman whose performance you don't really love in this movie is in Army of Darkness?
Yes, I know exactly who she is when you say that. I didn't recognize her when I was watching the film, and then as you say that, then I immediately know who she is.
I totally forgot that she's in Army of Darkness. I always forget she's in that movie.
And sadly, I mean, I've watched it not all that long ago, and until you said something, it would not have. I would have never said anything on my own.
Because you know what you remember from that movie? Bruce Campbell and skeletons.
It's true.
That's about it.
And this is my boomstick.
Yeah. Well, that's part of him, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, so we got to ask the question here.
Can we just briefly talk about the ending here?
Oh, yeah. We didn't get that.
Because, I mean, the big reveal at the ending, it's a two-part reveal. The first reveal is that there was a cat around. So even though the demon had no human host, apparently he can enter the cat.
Now, at least
that would be the second reveal.
Right. But
I called that
first. The first reveal would be that Denzel Washington has an amazing idea of how to trap the demon.
Right. But that to me isn't as much of a reveal, I guess. That's just part of the story.
There are. But it is a good one that, like, again, it's one of those that I had forgotten because it'd been, 25 years since I've seen the movie and everything. So I was like, I wonder what his okay, very nice. Cigarettes.
It's sort of like I'll die for your sins, making him into what you think is going to be a kind of a Christ-like figure. The way to do it is to get the demon in you and then kill yourself when there's no one around for the demon to go to.
And this is going to sound strange, but listen, it's the late 90s, and in a kind of odd way, Denzel is Black Jesus. Everybody likes him. He's a pretty well-liked dude. Who doesn't like Denzel at this point? So
he has some unpopular opinions where eventually a Roman judge will have him killed.
We're getting there.
I can't think of a better candidate for Black Jesus than Denzel, but it's not my choice to make, if you know what I mean. I'm not a religious guy. But anyway, what really caught me was the cat was around because I expected his plan to work. We all expected his plan to work. When you start with that cold opening that's the flash forward to the end in a film noir or a pulp story, you expect it to come back and work. So when we invested all this time and all this plan, a good man commits suicide to stop a demon, and it's foiled by a cat.
Well, at least I will say this real fast. At least the cat didn't come out of nowhere. We placed the cat earlier in the film, so we knew that it could go through animals, so it didn't feel like a bullshit thing that they were just trying to throw in there for fun.
It's awesome.
But the real reveal is when we find out Denzel Washington's voice over from the cold opening, though it sounded like Denzel.
I see.
It was Azazel. And that's what got me. Said, I told you I almost died. That's not how he says it, but that's how I hear it.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, holy crap, this is awesome. I love that. But then I also thought, boy, if that cat starts whistling, it's going to ruin the moment. And thank goodness the cat did not start trying to meow out the song or something.
But yeah, like this, I mean, honestly, it was super cool. Again, high school age here and everything. So late 90s, you're dumb as a rock as it is. And so when that happened, it was that moment of like, oh, he did just say that from the beginning. And then when you watch back and everything, you're like, oh yeah, an unreliable narrator. But here's the thing, because everybody thinks about this. Everybody thinks about the opening where he just goes, well, another nice little hint there where he just goes, that'd be a long story for you know where my beginning is. So I remember that I was like, oh, that's a nice little touch there.
It makes so much more sense in retrospect.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So
cool.
They drop that there and everything. So, but like having that kind of knowledge and everything, and listening to not only the beginning part, which is the thing that everybody remembers because it's the most obvious part, but do listen back again on rewatches to that voiceover and apply that voiceover to the demon and not Denzel's character. And again, that also kind of reads differently.
Yeah.
So you would, the first time you hear it, you'll think that, but this next time you go like, remember the person who's doing this VO, that's your demon there and everything. So very cool. And again, it still plays out, which is nice. It's not like one of these movies where you go back and you see all the scenes and you're like, well, this is bull crap.
Looking at you, George Lucas.
Yeah. At least it's more like the Sixth Sense, where you look back and you're like, oh, it was there all along. I see. Yeah, boop, 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 boop.
It's like one of those, if they can find a way to convince you to buy one ticket, you'll convince 5 other people to buy their own. You know what I mean? Like, like they can't advertise how good it is without spoiling it, but they've just got to count on you to do the job.
That frankly was how The Sixth Sense became the hit that it was. It was just like people were like, "Oh my God, you have to go see this!" And for the most part, people were pretty darn good about that before the age of the internet and spoilers and stuff like that. It's kind of I don't know how I
didn't have it spoiled for me.
But you know what is fun is kids right now. I don't know if you know this, Sean, but kids right now are of the age where you're like in that 15-year-old, 13, 15-year-old age bracket there and everything. They've lived long enough to where they don't know what the spoiler of that movie is. And so parents are filming their kids' reactions to
that's amazing
the scene there, because these kids, and they look over like, oh my God. And it's so awesome to see kids who've never heard it before see it for the very first time. It's lovely.
Back before The Force Awakens came out, there was a rash of people sharing videos of their kids finding out for the first time that Darth Vader was Luke Skywalker's father, and that was precious as could be too.
Those are always good. Oh yeah. So we're on our Denzel train here and everything. Is Denzel doing it in this role?
Yes, it's my favorite Denzel movie. I don't know if he really doesn't have a ton to do. Like he's not like this isn't the kind of thing where Oscars are like, yowza, some more of that, please. But he is doing the 3 things he needs to be doing in this movie. He needs to be in a police procedural. Mm-hmm. He needs to be like average, normal guy, and he needs to be somebody who's possessed. And he does all 3 of those things, and he does them all well enough, in fact, that you can see the difference happen in just about everybody when they are inhabited with the demon Azazel.
And
I think that he is kind of slumming it a little bit in this movie. Mm-hmm. He brings it up so much just by being Denzel, and it's kind of the magic trick of Denzel Washington is anything he's in. It gives you, like, I'll look twice at something if I know he's in it.
Yeah, he's I'm going to go ahead and just say that at this point, I'm convinced that I'll never find a Denzel performance to be unenjoyable. Like, I think it's impossible. We'll wait and see what the next couple of weeks hold for us. Maybe pushing the limits here.
You're not wrong.
It's hard for me to imagine not enjoying Denzel Washington.
Yeah, he's just great.
You know what's also interesting is he's not like he's not putting so much of the Denzel pepper on everything, which is
he does though.
I'm not saying there's not. I'm not saying there's not. I'm just saying as much.
Yeah, I mean, there are hints. It's not like the thing where he's the dirty cop. It's not that movie, but like there's a lot of Denzelism in this.
Sean, don't you feel like they gave him a few scenes so he could do it and almost get it out of his system? Because I feel like he was allowed to be very Denzel with his Denzelisms when he's talking about why he deals with dirty cops and doesn't judge, but he's not a dirty cop, that kind of thing.
There is that. There's also the scenes where it's clear to me that like some of the stuff he is saying is not in a script. Like keeps like he'll ask somebody, he'll be like, "Hey, how's it going?" Like, okay, I'm okay. I'm okay. Like stuff that wouldn't be in a movie script. And they clearly were like, just say something here, Denzel, and we'll go from there. And then there's there, and when he's doing those things, when he's doing the little asides like that, that's when he's the most Denzel, because he does things like starts rubbing the back of his head, or
there's a little laugh and everything, and
the little laugh. There's the thing that he does where like he moves his head over to the side and he grimaces. And like half of his face is smiling and the other half isn't. Like he does stuff like that in every performance, which is what makes him so great.
That half smile to me, that half smile to Denzel is like eating an apple is to Brad Pitt. Like that is a trademark thing.
If you wouldn't do it, we'd be disappointed.
I guess it's time for the big question, Adam.
Is this movie's only come in two forms? Is this one art or fart? Let's start with you, Bruce.
I think that it could be easy to make an argument for this being fart if it weren't for one thing and one thing only, and that's Denzel. Denzel makes it art. It has a nice twist to the end, but I don't know if I'm following it. I don't know if I'm watching to the end if Denzel's not in it, but he's enough to push this over from fart to art to me.
All right. Sean? I think I know.
Bruce, you had a good point earlier, is that the first act of this movie is great. And I think also what redeems this movie, not just Denzel, is the ending of this movie is just a banger. The thing people don't remember about The Usual Suspects is The Usual Suspects is a very long, slow movie.
That's correct.
That when you're watching it for the first time, you're like, I have no idea why everyone thinks this movie is so great. And then the ending saves the rest of the movie. This is better than that. This is paced far better than The Usual Suspects is, although it is too long. I love this movie. I've loved this movie for 25 years. So of course I'm going to think it's art. But I do understand the people who are like, it's too pulpy. I don't like the fact that it's a police procedural, but there's also supernatural elements to it. Like I totally can understand that. But this is so my jam that I just love it. It's art.
Yeah. I'm going kind of a just barely art here and everything as well, because like you said, those are the elements of that. This is one of these things that is because it's usually the sum is better than the parts. Whatever. All the pieces are better than the whole of this. They don't all add up to the best thing in the world, but they add up to something pretty good. But you got all the ingredients in there. They just maybe the pie just needs to be cooked another 20 minutes. I don't know.
A perfect candidate for the old addition by subtraction.
Exactly. It's good enough, but for what it is, the time that it was and everything, this just feels like that kind of era of Denzel movies between like this and, like I said, your Bone Collector and stuff like that. We're just like, let's just put Denzel in these weird procedurals with, good looking white ladies. And there we go. It's kind of just how it was. And guess what? Successful formula. It worked it worked pretty well for quite a while. And then we kind of moved on to other cool stuff and everything with him. Luckily, he's diverse enough for all of that. And we got a little bit of a diversity coming up next week. We'll talk about that in just a second. Sean, where can they find more of your work on the internet?
We have a YouTube channel with HMP, and please go. If you look, you have your podcatcher of choice, right? You can listen to a podcast however you choose. I am becoming more and more of a fan of listening to podcasts on YouTube, just because the podcatcher commercials aren't in there.
Yeah,
and I know that we don't have commercials anyway. But you should check it out. Like it's a good way to listen to the show is through YouTube. Do it.
And I'm going to be putting some actual more video content and stuff up on that page and stuff as well. I think I'm working. I'm trying to figure out exactly what date we're going to end up doing it, but it certainly will be this month because I'm going to do a Criterion Haul with a buddy of mine, and we're going to put that video up there and stuff just to do something a little different. So yeah, check out the YouTube page, everybody.
If it's time for your family to leave after Thanksgiving, just pop on Werewolf Fighter on the big TV, and they'll all have reasons they got to get somewhere. So keep that in mind too.
That's not a bad thing. Listen, there's sometimes you got to get the folks out of the house, and you can only say Feliz Navidad so many times. You got to bust out the Werewolf Fighter. That's what I always say. That is it. Check me out on TikTok where I'm doing fun stuff. I try to, and it's good. Check out it's Adam Portress. All the links are there in the show notes. As always, that will do it. Bruce, what are we doing next week? Since we got your choice on the table here for our Denzel Washington, the action films of Denzel Washington.
Back in the old days of hero movie podcasts, there were a few films that were always a bridesmaid but never a bride, always nominated but never got the win. And one of those was Two Guns, starring Denzel Washington, based on a graphic novel that I got for like a quarter or something somewhere. And when I say I got like what would normally be a $20 trade paperback for a quarter. Woo! So that should tell you how good this thing is.
All right. So they got I wonder if they purchased the rights as much as you did for that book. Is that how that worked? Where they're just like, it's free. Go ahead and do it. It's in the public domain at this point. So we'll be checking out Two Guns next week, everybody, with more thankfulness for being thankful for Denzel Washington, the action movies of Denzel Washington. That is it, everybody. Join us next week for that. For Sweet Sean's a Kovacs on the internet, Bruce Hussey, I'm Adam Portress, reminding you that the only difference between art and fart is an F.